Hello everyone, hope you're having an amazing day. In this video I'm going to be showcasing 5 different Linux distros, the 5 best ones, and also how to set them up in a virtual machine either in Windows or in TrueNas Scale. The process will be very similar, but it has its own differences. Without getting too much involved, let's start the video. So first, on Windows you need a hypervisor. Now you can use many different hypervisors. In this tutorial I'm gonna showcase VirtualBox, but you can use VMware, even Windows' own Hyper-V, but I recommend this. It has the most options and is easiest to use. First, you want to install it from the link I'm gonna provide in the description, then open it. Now here, just press New. You give your virtual machine a name. I'm gonna name mine Ubuntu. Just taking one, and it automatically will recognize it. It's a Linux from the name and Ubuntu. But if you did not recognize it, you can change it. As you can see, I have Debian, Fedora, PC Linux OS, Oracle, Ubuntu, or other. For something like Pop OS, I'm going to have to choose other or Linux Mint because it's not on the list. Here, if you want to change the folder, here select an ISO. For example, if I can put my TrueNas, I can do something like Pop OS, for example. And I just give it a name. Here, don't touch unattended install. Go to hardware. Here you can assign how much memory you want to allocate to it. I suggest allocating between 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, depending on your system. I'm going to allocate it 8 here. And how many cores or threads in the example, virtual CPUs you want to assign. I have 20, you might not have 20, you might have 8. This is a Core i5-12600. For example, you might have 4 cores, 8 threads, you might have 6 cores, 12 threads. Doesn't matter, just assign. I suggest between 4 to 8 is enough. I'm gonna assign 8. On hard disk you can use a drive you have, a real drive, or you can create a virtual hard drive. For example, I'm going to create one here. I go to, again, this folder, save, and I'm gonna increase the size from 25 gigabytes to around 200 gigabytes and press finish. Now if I go to start, you'll see as it powers up the VM, my PC has started. This might happen, the virtual machine failed to boot. You press the DVD and then select this one, the Pop OS we want to boot off, mount and retry boot. This error is happening because mine is on a network location, it's having some difficulties, but you won't have that. If I select one that's locally on my PC, it will boot no problem. Yep. So just bear that in mind. If you are going to boot from a distro which is on a network, it will not work. You have to have the ISO locally on your device. But as you can see, it has booted up. If you press the right Ctrl and F, it will put it on full screen. Makes it easier to see. And just set it up like you would on a normal PC. Now, to do the process on TrueNAS, you first need a dedicated dataset. Just make one here. I've already shown in other tutorials how to make one, but just make one and set it up as an SMB share so you can access it from your other PCs. I've named my RPI. Now go to virtualization, press add. In this case we're going to choose Linux. Just give it a name. Just gonna Ubuntu. System clock, leave it as local, UEFI. Here you can assign a IP address. As you can see, if you are going to use a SPI session. If you are not, you don't have to do this. You can set a password if you want. I'm just going to set one. Next. Here you can assign the virtual CPUs, how many. These are not cores, processors. For example, if you want a motherboard with dual sockets, you have to change this to 2, but I'm only gonna set it to 1. 2 cores, 4 threads will be enough. If you here you can set the CPU mode. I'm just gonna set host pass-through. The i7 is going to be enough. Here you can change the memory. I'm gonna type in 4 GB, means 4 gigabytes, and press next. Here you can create new disk image or use an existing one. So create a new one. Here it needs the Z volume location or the data set, which I told you to make. Go to Raspberry Pi, set its size. I'm gonna set to 120, should be enough. Next, here you can assign network interface. If you don't have one, you make a virtual one. But if you do, for example, here I have another network interface. I just select it. Next, here you need to upload your ISO. If it's already on your NAS, you would just select it here. For example, mine is here. Here are all my ISOs. If it's not, just upload new image file, choose file, and you can just select one and where to save it. But because mine are already here, I'm just going to select it, Ubuntu desktop in this case, and make sure it's blue so it actually recognizes it. GPU, now I'm not gonna pass through anything here. Now I'm gonna click on save. Now you will have, just ignore this. Now you have your virtual machine on TrueNAS and you can access it from, change it to running, and now press this drop down menu and you can click display and you'll be able to access it. Here you can access a terminal shell if you really want to, and also here is very important, you can check the logs if you're having issues. Alright, this is how to be setting it up on TrueNas Scale. Now I'm going to show you the 5 OSs, the best ones, and I'm going to rate them. Okay, so the first Linux distribution I'm going to cover is Ubuntu Desktop. Now this is ideal for beginners due to its user-friendly interface and extensive community support. Also regular updates, a stable LTS or long-term support version, and vast software compatibility. If you are more of a power user, you also have access to a terminal if you know how to do that. For example, you can right click, open in terminal, and you can type like, I don't know, you can enter in commands, for example. You can you can do a lot of stuff with Ubuntu Desktop. It has a very wide software compatibility. There is even an app store preloaded here. You can choose many different ROMs. For example, you even have emulators on here. You have games, you have everything. It also comes with a web browser, which is very neat. It comes with Firefox pre-installed. You can load up Wikipedia, Reddit, anything you want. This is a good way of learning Linux. I would suggest people to try at least once. You can use it, as a regular OS. You can use it as a server. Would not suggest it, but if it's your first time, you can do that. This is an operating system I think everyone should try, which it should be their first one, to be honest, because as you can see from for the reason I have listed, and also because it's it's a very easy to use operating system. It's a lot like Windows. For example, instead of pressing Windows key tab, you have this button here. You can also type in your apps here. Yeah, you see. So this is a great option for beginners or people which are not tech savvy. Also, this is good for general purpose use, and also professionals will find this very useful. This is everything I have for the first Linux distribution. Now let's move on to the second. So now the second Linux distro I would suggest people to use is Linux Mint. Now Linux Mint is extremely beginner friendly, especially for people going from Windows to this. User interface is very similar. For example, you have the start menu on Windows, you have the start menu here. You have the search bar with all the icons here, you also have that on Windows. On the bottom right corner you have the time, you also have your internet, your sound, you also have that here. Also, your apps will be standard as well. For example, Mozilla Firefox also works here. You can install whatever you want on this PC. Also comes with a lot of essential apps built in. For example, we have a calculator, we have Bluetooth tools, we have a calendar, we even have Office. You can open up and edit documents. You have everything that you need, nothing you don't. You even have access to the standard terminal here. And these Linux distributions use the same command language. For example, the sudo apt update I did on the last OS will also work here. Yeah. You can see it's also very easy to use. And we also have the Polish Cinnamon desktop environment with great out-of-the-box functionality. This comes pre-installed. You do not need to install the desktop environment. Some Linux distributions will have you do this manually. They'll just give you the terminal once you install them, and they give you instructions how to put in the desktop environment if you want it. But this one comes right out of the box. One thing I'm going to show you is how to change the wallpaper on here. You just go to System Settings, then you go to Backgrounds, and here you have a bunch loaded. By default, you will have this. Don't get me wrong, it's cool, but if you go to WILMA, you'll have a bunch of more options, better options in my opinion. For example, you can put something like this. This is just a town in England. This also looks very nice in my opinion. You can also, if you want to, change the theme of your PC. Again, also another option in Windows. For example, you can change dark mode, light mode. You can also change the colors. For example, this icon here, you can make it a blue. Also the folders here, pay attention, will change. Yep. This has a lot of customization, and this is especially for beginners who do not know, who are not into Linux, don't know how to use them, are afraid. This is the best way from transitioning from something like Windows to Linux. This is by far the best operating system for normal users. For gaming, there's another I will show you. Okay, so another really good for some more advanced user is Fedora distribution. Now this is an amazing distribution if you are focused on the cutting edge technology and innovation. This is very similar to the Ubuntu user interface we saw earlier, but it has a few more advantages. This one is backed by Red Hat, which is an excellent platform for system developers and system admins. You'll find this very easy to use, although this is not for the basic user, the little bit more advanced user. Here you see a very similar interface to what we saw with Ubuntu. For example, if you go to network, you have the same options listed: wired, VPN, proxy, the same units in megabytes a second. Also, if you go to appearance, you can change the wallpaper here. I've changed it from the stock to this one. I think it looks a little bit nicer. This is also really optimized for develop work, but also give you a pretty solid user interface. This is the Enterprise Edition, but there is also the basic one. I suggest getting this one because it's a little bit more advanced and it doesn't cost you anything. Alright, as you can see, these are the applications that come preloaded. Pretty much, it's a similar selection with all of them really. You have the basic LibreOffice apps, and you also have Firefox, the web browser. On some distributions you can choose not to include the web browser, but I think it's worth it because just for convenience sake. And this is everything. Now let's move on to the next one, which is especially focused for gamers. Now thirdly, this is an operating system which is really meant for gamers, developers, and also power users because of its native NVIDIA graphics driver support. When you download it on the website, you have an option, and NVIDIA specific proprietary installation, or just AMD, Intel, everything else. As you can tell, even the developers thought of this being an operating system optimized for this. You even have everything you would need to use if you are a gamer or a developer in here. For example, you have stuff like archive managers, which you like open game assets. You can throw them into the game, do whatever you want. This is Pop! OS here. As you can see, the user interface is very similar to all the other ones, but here you have a lot more options. As you can see, OS upgrade and recovery, even have removable media, or here for the first time we have a utility which you can flash other USBs. On the other OSs this was not present, but this is what makes Pop! OS special. I also suggest for gamers to have this dual booted on like a separate SSD, install it, then when you boot, when you're done with your gaming, you can boot from your SSD and access the really well built and optimized version of Linux. Alright, now let's move on to the next one. Okay, so finally the last virtual machine I am going to showcase in this video is Debian Linux. Now, if you get this, for example, this is not full screen, you can just go to show applications, go to settings, now go to displays. As you can see, it says 1280 by 800. My screen is 920 by 1080. I just changed its resolution here, 920 by 1080. Click apply, and now, as you can see, I have the full screen here. So if this happens to you, just listen to how you fix it. Now, Debian Linux is really good for advanced users. It's best for servers and people who value stability over new features. This is rock solid. Even around here, we use Debian Linux a lot for containers, Docker, everything. It's very stable, really reliable, but it requires more setup. It's more manual labor work, and it's not as beginner friendly. Still, it uses the similar interface you've seen in the other distributions, for example your applications down here. Also the same language on the terminal. Let me show you. The same commands will work up. Yes, as you can see, this won't even take it. It's not in the sudoers file. This is a prime example of it requiring more work. I'm gonna have to do this. Yeah, so this is a really good operating system, but it needs a lot of work. As you can see, it didn't even take my command here. I'm not even in the sudoers file, which yeah, that pretty much will throw off all beginners. But this is an operating system which is really good for servers, and these are all my 5 best Linux distributions you should use. I hope you found this video interesting. I know it has been a bit longer than my usual ones. I hope I've covered everything from how to set this up in TrueNas Scale in Windows, and if you have any questions, just put them down below. I'll try to answer them. Take care, bye now.